you ever bought a watermelon that looked beautiful on the outside, with a shiny, smooth rind, only to cut it open and be disappointed because the flesh was pale, mushy, and not tasty at all? This isn't uncommon, because picking a watermelon that's truly sweet, crisp, and juicy isn't always easy. These days, the market is full of watermelons in all kinds of shapes and varieties, leaving many people unsure which one is the right choice. Some even spend $10 or more, only to end up with a poor quality melon. That's frustrating and a real waste of money, isn't it? That's why in today's video, I'm going to share with you 6 simple but highly effective methods to pick watermelons that are fresh, crisp, sweet, and juicy. So, let's get started. Method 1. First, take a look at the color of the watermelon. Naturally, ripened melons usually have a dark green rind, a deeper shade compared to unripe ones. This is a clear sign the melon has fully developed, with a thinner rind and flesh that has built up plenty of water and natural sugars. Watermelons like this typically have crisp, sweet, and juicy flesh with a refreshing flavor. On the other hand, watermelons with a lighter green rind or bright surface are usually not fully ripe. They often have a thicker rind, pale flesh with little flavor, less juice, and lack sweetness. Most of these melons were likely harvested too early, leading to lower quality. That's why, when choosing, you should always prioritize watermelons with a dark green rind to ensure sweetness and the best flavor. Method 2. Another important detail is the navel of the watermelon. This is the small round spot directly opposite the stem. If the navel is small and tightly closed, that's a sign the melon ripened fully, with flesh that developed evenly inside. This usually means the rind is thinner, easier to eat, and the fruit is naturally sweeter and juicier. On the other hand, if the navel is large, slightly raised, or has an open gap, be careful. It likely means the melon didn't ripen fully, or may have been treated with chemicals to speed up the ripening process. These watermelons usually taste bland, lack fragrance, and may even have a dry or mealy texture. So, the next time you're at the market, be sure to check the navel carefully before you choose. Method 3. When choosing a watermelon, pay close attention to the stripes on the rind. If you look carefully, you'll notice dark stripes running lengthwise across the fruit. A good quality watermelon usually has clear, well-defined stripes, with deep color spaced fairly evenly. This is a sign the melon ripened fully, the rind developed properly, and the inside has stored plenty of water and natural sugars. As a result, these watermelons are typically sweeter, more fragrant, and have crisp, juicy flesh. On the other hand, if the stripes look faint, broken, or irregular, it's a sign the melon isn't fully ripe. These watermelons often lack sweetness, have less juice, and their flavor is less appealing. So, by simply observing the stripes on the rind, you can easily tell which melons are worth buying and avoid those that haven't reached their best flavor. Method 4. Look at the deep yellow spot on the watermelon. This is the part that rested on the ground while it was growing, and it stands out from the rest of the rind. Because it was touching the ground, it didn't get as much sunlight. If this spot is a rich yellow, it means the melon stayed on the ground long enough to ripen naturally. During that time, the fruit built up sugars and water through photosynthesis, giving it a stronger, fuller flavor. That's why these watermelons are sweet, with firm, juicy flesh and a crisp texture. If the spot is white, pale, yellow, or faint, it means the melon didn't spend enough time ripening on the ground. The sugars didn't fully develop, so the flavor will be bland or weak. Don't choose watermelons like that. Method 5. The sound will tell you everything. This is a classic trick, but you need to know how to listen the right way. Most people have tried tapping on a watermelon at some point, but honestly, many just do it for fun without knowing what the sound really means. Here's the proper way. Hold the watermelon steady with one hand, and with the other, tap lightly in the center of the rind, ideally with your palm or your knuckles. If you feel vibrations spreading evenly through the melon, that's a good sign it's ripe. If there's little or no vibration, the melon is probably still unripe. Now, pay attention to the sound. If you hear a hollow, resonant bong bong, Congratulations, the melon is ripe, crisp, sweet, and juicy. If it sounds more like a dull thud, the melon may be overripe and mushy inside. If it sounds tight, like knocking on wood, the melon is underripe and will taste bland. In general, the deeper and more resonant the sound, the riper, sweeter, and crunchier the melon will be. From now on, use this little secret. Don't just tap for fun, tap with purpose. And you'll know exactly whether that watermelon is worth buying. Method 6. Finally, when you're looking at two watermelons of similar size, always choose the heavier one. A heavier melon usually holds more water, with firm, dense flesh that's crisp and full of sweet flavor. On the other hand, lighter melons are often hollow, mealy, with less juice, and far less tasty. That's why weight is an important factor in judging the quality of a watermelon. And now, here's the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's check the watermelon I picked based on the tips I just shared. When tapped, it gives off a resonant sound. The rind is dark green with clear stripes, and the navel is small and neat. On the bottom, where it rested on the ground, there's a deep yellow spot, a classic sign of natural ripening. And when I cut it open, wow! Just look at that bright red, juicy flesh, full of water with a wonderful fragrance. Next, let's cut into the second melon, the one I didn't choose. The difference is striking. A thicker rind, pale flesh, that's soft and dry with far less juice, and not nearly as red as the first one. Since watermelon is made up of more than 90% water, it's not only delicious, but also a fantastic way to stay cool and hydrated in the summer, especially for older adults. Getting hydration from fruits like watermelon also helps the body stay balanced and healthy. As you can see, these 6 methods are simple and easy to remember. Yet when you put them into practice, the results are immediate and impressive. Do you remember the tips for choosing a good watermelon that I just shared? How do you usually pick your watermelons? Leave your thoughts in the comments so everyone can learn from each other. Thank you so much for your support. That's the end of today's video. If you have any questions or suggestions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next ones. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.